Hi there everyone, it's Jaakko here. Recently I created this game model, this environmental game asset, this covered barrels shipment package parcel kind of thing, and I'd like to show you guys how I created the materials in Substance Painter, and also how you use other tools like Designer and also ZBrush to create these materials. So let's jump right into it. So as you can see, we have like 3 or 4 different material types here. We have this wood, this wood pallet kind of thing, and then we have these barrels, and then this tarp material, this green one here, and then I have these straps in here, and well, there's also the metal, this kind of buckle thing in here. So this wood palette is nothing special. It's just a simple model which I created in Blender and then brought it here into ZBrush to do some little sculpting. It's just not very special, and I didn't even bother to pay much attention to these areas here because nobody's going to be able to see them because it's going to be covered anyway. But the bottom polys here, I just deleted them because I don't want to waste any UV space. I want to be as optimized as possible, so you really don't need to have those in there, and they're just gonna be wasting your UV space and your texture space in your model. So it's always good to optimize your models in this way. So I think I have also then this tarp. So what this is actually, this is a basic basically just this physics object which I created in Blender. So I used the physics or cloth dynamics, cloth physics in Blender to create these shapes, and then I added some detail here in ZBrush. For example, these sort of wrinkles in here, because this is going to be tied with that strap, so we want to have some detail. So this is again really simple. I just went and used standard brush and also used the lazy mouse. So it's really good to use lazy mouse for this kind of thing, and I use a Wacom tablet normally for sculpting these kind of things. So let's use lazy mouse, maybe use something like that, and then you can come here and do this kind of thing. So I use standard brush, just these settings, and then do like that and press Alt, and so this kind of thing we're gonna be able to create these kind of added details in here. So again, there's nothing really special. It's just a basic high poly modeling. And then what I did was that I created low poly by using actually what I did was that I think I went to geometry and used this Z remesher. So first I used Z remesher to reduce that polygon quite a bit, and then on top of that I just used I think we went to Z plugin, and I used Decimation Master to come up with this. It's pretty low poly, but it still retains that silhouette, and it retains all the things that we need for baking. So this works pretty well, and I'm pretty glad about that. So then I just launched X normal and bake normal and ambient occlusion maps and brought them to Substance Painter. So let's take a look. So the way I have this set up here in Painter is that I have these 2 texture sets, and the way how you can set this up is that from your 3D modeling application you can just create 2 materials and then export the FBX, and the materials are going to show up as different texture sets. So you should be careful, however, that if you accidentally export your model in that way and then you notice that you have a bunch of texture sets and you don't want that, it's going to be really difficult to merge them later. So it's important to notice that you sort of that when you're planning your model and when you're going to export, you should make sure that your materials are, if you want just one texture set, everything should be basically the same one material in your FBX file. So then Substance Painter is going to read that. So but in my case, I'm pretty glad that I have 2 now. So I have this palette, and then I have this shipment, this is the top area here, and now both of them are going to have their own unique baked maps. So I baked them separately, and also I was able to use these bake textures here to create unique addition maps for both of these areas, and it just works very nicely. And you can still bake, like if you do the bake for example, when I did for the palette, you can see that I got some of that ambient occlusion from this one bleeding into that one. So you can sort of do that kind of thing, which is really good. So yeah, it's nothing really special. So I imported the maps that I created, and then I also baked some additional textures here. So I created worst space, normal, curvature, and position maps, and I think I also created one additional ambient occlusion map here. So I've got like more stuff to work with. So what's really good about Substance Painter, which I think is pretty amazing with this, is that actually what I did first, I created sort of 2 low resolution mesh for this, and then I noticed that I would like to have more geometry actually to get more better curvature on these edges, for example here. So what I did was that I just, after I had basically textured this whole model, when I had every material set up and everything, I went here and just created actually new model and new bake for this whole cloth. And then I just updated that file, that our base file, and I went here to edit and project configuration. You can actually update that, and if you don't change it too much, and if you don't change the position, I think the position of the vertices is important, that you shouldn't actually move the model around, because then Substance Painter might get confused. But I was able to change the mesh and change the UVs after I had already textured this, which is I think amazing. So I had to adjust just a little bit something here, but it was just a breeze. So I mean, it's amazing that we can do that kind of thing in Painter, so absolutely big fan of that. So what I have here is just the basic normal map, which I created from the Hyperlink in ZBrush. And then I imported this substance that I created earlier in Designer. I'm actually going to link that wooden floor wood material thing, and I just modified this just a little bit. I removed some of the features that I had, and I also made this a little bit more rough, that you can see more this kind of rough detail in here. So this is going to blend pretty well with the normal map that we have created. So we are doing this blending here, and if you want to adjust that blending, you can go to select, like here, you can go here and select normal, and then you can adjust that. So you can well, it's going to be this NMDD, means that normal map detail. So we are blending the detail, and it just works well. But you can also do different effects here if you want to blend a different way. You can subtract and do that kind of thing. You have like a subtract, I think, in here, and do that kind of thing. But I really like to use this normal detail. So basically that I'm making these rough shapes in ZBrush, and then I'm just blending in this high frequency detail, and I'm going to be able to adjust that here. So I'm going to maybe, I think it's looks nicer that if we have maybe a little bit less of that, but yeah, something like that. So as you can see, it's pretty simple. If you have some parameters you have exposed in Designer, they're going to show up here, and in my case I have just this seed, this random seed. So if you do that, you're going to be able to get different results, which is actually pretty cool. So it's nothing really special. We have I laid out the UVs so that all of them are aligned this way, so we're automatically getting the wood grain going to correct direction, so we're not getting any weird results here. And then I'm just adjusting the UV scale, so you can adjust that to get like a good result here. So nothing really special, it just works right out of the box pretty nicely, which yeah, I'm a big fan of this, that we're going to be able to get procedural textures to work here in Substance Painter from the Designer. So then what I did was that I just added this color layer in here. Just use multiply, and I wanted to make the wood look more aged, so that it is not so bright, and it also blends better with the colors. So again, I'm just using a base color here. I'm just defining a simple color value here. And then we have this paint layer, and for this is again nothing really special. We have this color, height, rough, metal, and normal set up in here, and then I have this color, and I've just set some roughness value in here for this paint layer, so it's pretty nice. And then what I did was that I created this mask. So basically I just created black mask here, and then I used this mask builder, which gives us some edge wear effects. So you can use you can adjust, for example, level of your wear and tear, so you can do this kind of thing. And then on top of that, I just added one paint layer, so I was able to do some hand painting on that, and then remove some material from those edges. So yeah, So then on top of that I created some dirt. So I just defined one base material, this base material which has a color like that, and then again used MG dirt, this generator which comes with Substance Painter. So I just used that, and what this is doing is that it's using the ambient occlusion map what you have, and so this sort of accumulates the dirt on those occluded areas. And then I have this curvature here and a bunch of settings that I just dragged around and see what I can come up with. And then on top of that I have actually some of these texts in here. These are just I just defined one material here, and then I just used hand painted masks in here to give this sort of this kind of look. And then I used actually I think so actually what I did was I just used stamped these using the alphas in here, so you can have a bunch of these. You can import your own ones in here. I think I actually imported mine, these texts in here, and then just basically did that and placed them in here. I don't know why it doesn't. If we do like that, it should actually show up. Yeah, so we can do like that. And then what I did was that I used eraser to give it sort of worn, so it looks like it's kind of worn off. So this is pretty much that. So the blanks are nothing more complicated than that, but it looks pretty decent and good enough for our needs. So then we have a bunch of materials here, and I'm pretty glad about how this tarp turned out, and I'm gonna get to that in a minute. So I just started basically by defining these buckles, this metal material, and something really interesting happened. The metal has some pretty interesting looking normal map information in there, and I just accidentally left that on, and I noticed that it sort of adds a little bit this nice variation for the whole model. So I just left it so basically everything is affected by this normal map from this metal material, but I just didn't want to erase that because it kind of adds a little bit of variation to it. So that's it. So I just defined base metal material here for those, and then I just mask out this tarp. So again, masking works really well here. It's really easy. So you can for example define something here, and then you can use this polygon fill, and then you can use this mesh fill, which you can just click somewhere in the mesh, and then the whole mesh is going to, the mesh that is connected is going to be masked automatically. So it's very, I just created the mask like that. So for the tarp, that was actually really fun to make, and I'd like to show you guys how I created this green tarp material. So what this is actually I created this own group in here. So the idea here is that we can group stuff, and then we can mask the group. So we don't need to create individual masks for everything that is under the group, and then we can also create one unified mask for the group, and then create hand painted stuff, hand painted the details, hand painted masks for everything that is under that. So you can sort of create hierarchy here, which is really cool. So what I did here was I just created this graph for the tarp, and it's pretty fun. It was really easy to make. So I used this weave generator. So you have actually this, if you write weave in here, you can see you have a bunch of these. And so the way how this works is that you can just drag that in, and then you can adjust these settings. So what I did was I just added like one tile there and adjusted the shape just a little bit, so that I'm getting that, and also remove the gap. So you can add also gap in here. What this does, it gives us this kind of result, which might also be something to look at if you want to do that kind of thing. But in my case, we are creating a tarp, and I noticed that tarp looks more realistic in this way. So I did that, and then I just used some tile generator to give it this sort of tiling, and use gradient map to turn that into the color, and then I blended in some stuff in here. But let's get to this guy here. So I have these sort of fibers in here, and what this is again just a basic shape and tile generator, and I created some variation to this by using the luminance variation contrast slider in here. So I'm able to come up with something like that. So then I have this tile generator again in here, and what I have in here then is that I have these masks, which are actually this, we have this checker pattern in here, and then if you write checker, you can find that, and it's really versatile tool actually. So I was able to do that, and then I created another, and then I rotated it by using transformation 2D, and by doing that we're going to be able to mask these areas in here, for example, and then I use transformation 2D to rotate that, and then masking that. I wonder if you get what I mean, that it's just pretty simple. So we are masking this area first, and then we are rotating these masks so we get the other parts, so we get this and this, and we are able to come up with that. So now we're blending that to that, so we are getting these fibers. And then again, using tile generator, and I'm just using that same values with this. There might be a better way to do that in Designer. There might be we might be able to use some kind of variable or something that if we want to create interactive substance, that we're going to be able to change that. Yeah, it should be possible, but yes, nothing really special in here. And then use invert grayscale, and we're just making the normal by using the height normal blend in here. And then what I did was that I also used these greased. So this grease is really useful for making the folds, making this kind of like a fabric things that we have this kind of like creases in here, and I just did that, and we came up with this sort of a normal map. And then again, for the roughness, I did nothing really special here, just blended some noise in here. We have this crunch map in here which I throw in, and also created some of the variation, and this really helped the realism of that. So having this roughness detail in here, it really makes a lot of difference. I noticed that if you're doing this kind of thing, you should always try to have something appropriate in your roughness channel, so that it light sort of picks up these fibers in here. It looks way better, I noticed. So again, we have like our base color, nothing special here. I don't even have like the dirt in here, because I thought that I could actually get in here and do some wear effects, that some of the parts are broken and something that's nothing really special. You can do that in Substance Designer, but I also wanted to have the freedom to be able to change everything in Painter, and to be able to hand paint those details in there, or do some kind of effects like I did for the curvature, so that we are picking up some corners are worn off and so on. But it's nowadays we have so many ways we could create this whole material. For example, in ZBrush using the nano mesh, and we could use Photoshop, or we could just hand paint that, or we just have so many different ways nowadays, and it's just so cool that we can always choose what works best for us. But I was able to come up with this material, and this works just nicely, and I might actually come back in here later and make some of these parameters here adjustable, so that this works more interactively, that I'm going to be able to change everything in Fly. So before you export the material, as you can, if you come here and you right click, you can see that we have this publish sbsar file, and before you do that, you should make sure that your material is relative to the parent, and everything is set to the 0, otherwise everything is going to work real slow. So you should make sure that your graph is set so that you have relative to parent, and this is basically 0. It looks awful here, but it doesn't matter, because Substance Painter is gonna be able to change the output size. So I'm just leaving these as it is. So this is actually 256 pixels, and yeah, actually you can see it here. So this is the way how it should be done. And then I'm just gonna come here, and I actually publish this file, and I have this shelf in here, and I have these materials which are usable now. Every time when I open Substance Painter, these materials are gonna show up in my materials shelf, so it's pretty nice. So again, what I did was I just added this, and then I just changed some of these settings. So I'm using triplanar projection in here, and then I used UV scale to scale it up, and use offset. I think, well, I didn't actually need to offset that, and use these settings like that. And I didn't define the height information because I really don't need it. So I also created this anchor, and what this does is that this anchor is going to pick up the normal detail, and then we are going to be able to use that normal detail from this material in our edge wear effect. So way how this edge wear worked is just, again, I created one base color, one base material in here, and then I masked that. So I created black mask, and I used MG mask builder. So then I was able to reference these anchors. So I just went here and created micro normal, and then use reference channel normal. So you have to set it up that way, otherwise it really isn't gonna work. So then I was able to get this sort of effect. So you can see that this wearing looks like something has brushed off of this edge, and then we're going to be able to get that effect. So I just used these sliders in here, and also did some hand painted effects in here, so that we were able to get some more worn effects, which the mask builder didn't make. Because sometimes when you're using these generators, they might look a little bit procedural, and you want to have that organic look that you sometimes are better off by using just a hand painting. So I did that, and I'm pretty glad about how this looks. So we have this area in here, and then we have also some of these that you can see that maybe these straps are kind of have kind of scratched this. So this is wear and tear that's time has caused. And then I created some dirt in here. So I created this hand, I just calling hand dirt. I just basically hand painted. So again, I defined a material and then created a mask, because in that way, if we want to change the color of this, we are still free to do that. So if we just create hand painted layer, we don't kind of have that freedom. So I like to rather work this way. And then I have this text, and again, this is something that I did. So I just imported some alphas to use for our text, and I think I did like I have like these guys in here, and I just stamped these in. And so again, we are just defining material, and then we are masking. So we're going to be able to change the color of these texts, and also the intensity and those kind of things. So then for the barrels, I just created the base material, this steel rust and wear, and then paint layer in here, and then I created some masks again for the paint layer. Again, pretty much the same thing. And then I have like some dust, which I created like that. Again, adjusting the roughness a little bit, and put some color in there, and then use this MG dirt in here. And then I have some additional leaks, which these are just hand painted details. So I used we have these particle brushes in here. I used these leaks to do sort of paint in some of that. So the way how the barrels are is that I just have one barrel basically, which is, you can see the texture here, and then I have just like copied and rotated that around, so we're not wasting any texture space. So we don't really need 6 barrels or 6 unique UVs. We just create one, and then we can rotate that, so we are going to be able to save a lot of texture memory. So then we have these straps, and this was actually pretty interesting to make. So I just created own material for this using Substance Designer, and what this was is just basic. Again, I'm using a weave. I'm using this weave 2. So if I'm just gonna come here, we can write a weave, not wave, weave, weave 2. I think I'm just gonna do like that, and you can see that we have this. So this is like already almost there, and you can do this. You can rotate that 45 degrees, so you can get great variation that way. So what I did was just created one of them, and sort of adjusted the tiling just a little bit, and then I created another one, and then I rotated this 45 degrees, and then I didn't rotate that, and then I mixed them together, so we're getting this kind of like a seam effect in here. And then now we already have that, and then what I did was that I used this shape here as a mask to put the seam in there. So this worked. It's not perfect, but nobody's really get this close to it. So when you're seeing the game, you're going to be seeing it maybe from this distance, and you can already see that it sort of works, and it's good enough for me. So then I used a height normal blend to create a normal map out of that, and I also created some other effects here. We are using this HBO, this ambient occlusion, and then I just mixed just a little bit of that detail to our color map, so we are getting a little bit more detail like that. And then again, for the roughness, nothing really special. I just wanted to sort of give it a little bit of variation in here. Again, I could I think I did a little bit of this crunch map thing in here. So I have this crunch map which is blended here, and then I have exposed this parameter, so we're going to be able to get some dirt in here. So what I'm doing is that I'm just blending in this one, and then I'm exposing the opacity here, so we're going to be able to control that later. So then I'm mixing this, I'm using gradient map to convert that into color information and blending into the diffuse channel, and then also blending it to the roughness at the same time. So one slider is going to do the job for us. So yeah, I'm pretty glad about this. It's so fun to make. And then I just went in here and I put it in there, and then I just what I did was that I adjusted it by using the UV offset. So I was able to create one of these straps doing that way, and then I just duplicated that, and then I adjusted the UV offset for this one. So in that way I was able to get the seams in the correct positions in here. So then we can see that actually on the edges we have UV seams, and the way how I was able to avoid having those seams visible, I just used triplanar projection here. But then we have these hanging parts, and then if you try to use triplanar for this, it sort of doesn't work. So if we go here, we change the triplanar projection, you can see that well, it's now properly triplanarly projected, and that's not what we want. What I want this to do is to respect the shape, and the way I have done this is that I have laid the UV so that actually this is straight piece. I think it's around here. So the way how we can do that is just use this UV projection instead of triplanar projection. Then I had to adjust UV scale a little bit to match, but again it works pretty well that way. So I was doing the hanging parts, these kind of pieces in here, doing that way. And then I have again some hand-painted dirt in here. So again, this was pretty straightforward to do. I just graded material and added some hand-painted dirt in here. And then I have a further detail in here using MG dirt, and to do that way I was able to get more detail in here. And then again added some more for the other parts. And then I have these texts, and again the texts are done using the same way. So I created the material and then masked that. So then what I did was that I exported the textures. So if you go to File and Export Textures, you can see you get this dialog in here, and you can hit this configuration tab in here. You can see you have all these pre-made templates for, like if you're working for CryEngine or for Keyshot or for Unity or Unreal Engine, you can use these as your template, but you can also create your own. So what I like to do is that I like to create my own templates for my projects. So I use this Unreal Engine for Jaakko here, and then I just change some of these values. So I like to have my texture set list. So I'm basically sampling these values, and I'm just using this texture set as a sort of a prefix for the names. So I have this base color texture, and then I have these guys here. So I'm using like a palette base color and a shipment base color. So they're just because both of them are going to be unique textures. So I like to sort of have these in here, and then I have this Unreal Engine 4 packing method in here. So what this means is that I have RGB values for the base color. So I have one texture, color texture, and then I have this alpha, this for the opacity channel. So if there's something needs to be transparent, I'm going to be able to export that into the base color alpha. And then I have this occlusion roughness metallic in here. So I'm using RGB, and you can just drag these guys here to create your own packing. So this is the Unreal Engine 4 method for packing, and then the normal is just one RGB, because we need RGB for the normals anyways. So in this way, whole thing is going to be much more economical for the texture memory, I suppose. So I like to use that, and also it's very easy to use in Blender. So if you're using Blender, you can use RGB split node in Blender to separate them. So this is pretty convenient way, and you're gonna have less files anyway in this way. So when I went to Marmoset, I just basically created the materials here for the wood and for the top, and then for these Microsoft, so I'm using the roughness map from here, and again we can see the occlusion and roughness. So occlusion means R red, and then roughness means G green, and then metallic means blue, the B one in here, and the A is the alpha if you need that. So again, for the metallic I'm just using the same texture, and then I'm just sampling the the blue color from that. So it's pretty easy and nice way to do it that way. So I hope you enjoyed this material breakdown of this environment piece. If you have some techniques that I missed or some better ways to do something, please leave the comment. Just I'd love to hear from you guys. This is it. This was Jaakko. I hope to see you guys soon. Bye bye.